Welcome attendees. My name is Mridula Sharma, and I welcome you to Macquarie University's Speech Pathology and Audiology webinar. On behalf of this gathering, I would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the First Nations peoples of Australia, elders, past, present, and emerging. Before we get started with the whole program, a few tips on housekeeping. So first of all, well, that's the first housekeeping rule. If you're not speaking for now, could you please mute your microphone? Thank you. And also your video for now. And if you have any questions throughout the presentation, you would notice at the bottom, there is a Q&A box. Please type your questions in there. If you don't want us to know your names at the moment, that's okay. You can keep yourself anonymous. This is being recorded, so very important. If you don't want to be recorded, then keep yourself, you can just type and not have your video on. If you have any other questions that we were unable to answer during the session or you thought of later, you will have our email addresses, so you can send your questions on that and contact us directly later. Now, before we get started, what I would do is I'd introduce the panel that we've got here. So we've got Dr. Scott Barnes, who is the director of the speech language pathology program. So he's going to be talking to you soon. And we're very lucky to have our students from both the programs, audiology and speech pathology, who have joined us. So Emma Law from speech pathology, and I have got Gemma and Cara from audiology. And we also have my audiology's clinical education manager, Chevelle, who will step in if you have any tricky clinical questions that I'm not sure about. So now, without much ado, can I welcome Dr. Scott Barnes to start and present his all about speech pathology. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you very much, Mridula, for a very warm welcome there, and a very warm welcome to everyone who's joined us this evening. Very convenient on this rainy evening not to have to head out into the rain and to sit back in the comfort of our homes and talk about the Master of Speech and Language Pathology and the Master of Clinical Audiology. So as Mridula said, I am the course director of the Master of Speech and Language Pathology program. I'm a speech pathologist. And my research focuses on people with acquired communication disorders, particularly those caused by stroke and traumatic brain injury. To begin with, I'd just like to talk a little bit about why we have a postgraduate program in speech pathology at Macquarie University. As many of you will be aware, there are undergraduate pathways to a speech pathology qualification available in Australia as well. So I thought a good starting point here might be to reflect on what advantages a postgraduate qualification offers. Now, the first advantage is more for the profession, perhaps, than any individual, which is that it allows, a postgraduate qualification allows for the integration of people with other professional backgrounds into speech pathology. So we've had people with backgrounds in nursing, arts, medicine, pharmacy as well, where have come into our course and become speech pathologists and changed their careers. This really is enriching for the profession, and it allows people with a real diversity of life and work experiences to add to the diversity of our profession. In addition, a postgraduate qualification in speech pathology is really consistent with many other allied health and professional areas. And particularly, it's consistent with speech pathology qualifications overseas, which tend to be postgraduate only. We also at Macquarie have a variety of other graduate allied health and psychology degree programs available. And yeah, we sit well alongside them, one of which of course is the Master of Clinical Audiology. So what does it mean to have a professional qualification in speech pathology? The Professional Association for Speech Pathology is very cryptically called Speech Pathology Australia. And once you successfully complete an accredited professional degree program in speech pathology, you then become eligible to be a certified practicing member of Speech Pathology Australia. That qualifies you to work as a speech pathologist in Australia, as well as in other places around the world. So our professional organisation has mutual recognition agreements with a variety of other professional associations. Yes, a postgraduate qualification can make you quite portable once we're all allowed to travel again. Now, a characteristic of our course that's really important to understand are the entry requirements, okay? And particularly our prerequisite studies and knowledge for entry into the course. So very generically, we're looking for a IELTS of 7 if English is not your first language across all of the relevant IELTS bands or equivalent. We're also looking for you to have a minimum credit average from your previous degree level studies. And on top of that, we're looking for you to have specific knowledge in linguistics and psychology as you enter the course. So introductory linguistics and psychology, slightly more advanced psychology in a variety of different areas, as well as specific knowledge of phonetics and phonology, language acquisition, speech physiology, and some advanced knowledge of phonology as well. Intake into the course varies a little bit from year to year. For 2021, we're looking to take up to 45 students into our course. For those of you who are domestic students, you might be interested to know about Commonwealth supported places. Basically what a Commonwealth supported place is a place in our course that is subsidised by the federal government. So the federal government contributes to the fees for the course. Last year, with this year's intake, we offered 12 Commonwealth supported places in the MSLP, and there's a variety of criteria that can be relevant for evaluating Commonwealth supported places. The number we'll have this year is yet to be determined, but I'm hopeful that we'll have at least 12 Commonwealth supported places again in the following year. The primary criteria for judging Commonwealth supported places are certain kinds of diversity and minority categories, in addition to merit, which every applicant is eligible for. Now let's get into a few more of the specifics of the course itself. Our course is 2 years full-time. However, from 2021, we will be offering a part-time version of the course, which will be 4 years in duration. Over the course of the course, you will complete both academic and coursework units of study. This basically means that you will have dedicated units for clinical placement, work integrated learning as it is sometimes called. We're also an on-campus course, theoretically, so we're not formally offered externally by the university. And really, it's like a full-time job. So we're expecting 40 to 50 hours of commitment per week in the full-time version. We do follow the standard session 1 and session 2 structure that's used across much of the university. Although, as we'll see in a moment, there are some placement requirements that go over the edge of session 2. And basically it will take a minimum of 2 years for you to complete the degree program. Yeah, so if you begin in February next year, you'll likely be ending in January of the following year, depending on exactly when your placement experiences are organised. Now, as I mentioned a moment ago, Speech Pathology Australia is the professional organisation that oversees speech pathology courses in Australia, and specifically it accredits them, so it says that they meet the requirements to become a speech pathologist. Our course is fully accredited by Speech Pathology Australia and has been so for a very long time. And in our course, we address the full range of communication and swallowing disabilities, both their nature and causes, and relevant assessment and intervention for them. So in terms of our clinical placements, we have a variety of what we call weekly and block placements. So weekly placements occur progressively over the course of the study session. So you'll be doing them 1 or sometimes 2 days a week. We also have block placements, which go for maybe up to 4 or 5 days per week. The number of these placements is distributed across the course as well. So you can see here that you're doing placement from very, very early in our course, from year 1, session 1, all the way up to the end of year 2, session 2. Yeah. So mostly in session 1, we'll have weekly placements, and in session 2, we'll have a mixture of weekly and block placements. The clinical placements aren't something that you need to go and organise yourself. We organise them for you, and specifically our clinical education manager, Jenny Brown, organises those for our course. We like to alternate between different contexts of speech pathology practice. So in many cases, this will mean alternation between child and adult workplaces, contexts of speech pathology practice. And these placements will take place across a variety of different locations. So we have the beautiful Macquarie University Speech and Hearing Clinic on campus that we use liberally. That provides services to Macquarie University Hospital as well. On top of that, we're sending you to places in metropolitan Sydney, the Central Coast and Illawarra. There are also opportunities for rural placements, particularly in the second year of the course. And for those of you who hold an international passport, and again, if we're ever allowed to travel again, there are opportunities too to do placements overseas, particularly at the end of year 1. And yeah, that's something that we organise very much on an individual basis. Okay, so the primary entry pathway into our course is through Macquarie University's Bachelor of Speech and Hearing Sciences. And it's very important for people in that course who have done the prerequisite units that are required for entry to our program. We also accept degree programs from other universities that also contain those prerequisite studies. However, the Master of Speech and Language Pathology only has 1 entry point, which is in session 1. And as many of you will know, our applications are open now. And yes, you are free to apply up until the 31st of October. Now, many of you will be interested in one aspect of our application process in particular, which is a personal statement. So we do this alongside the other information we're looking to gather as part of your application in order to get an understanding of the reasons that you want to enter the profession and what you know about speech pathology practice in Australia. You're also permitted to provide information about relevant experience, be it personal or in a workplace. I should very specifically note, though, that we don't require any particular experience with speech pathology as part of our application process. You can come in without having, been in a speech pathology workplace before. However, we do want you to have a good understanding of broadly what's involved in this professional area. You also have an opportunity to talk about any other factors that are relevant to your application. So for some of you, might be talking about some factors that affected your academic performance if your GPA or WAM isn't quite where you want it to be. But it can also be other personal details that you might wish to share about yourself that help us understand your application. Okay, so a few more practicalities in terms of next steps for entry into our course. Many of you, I'm sure, will very sensibly be applying to a number of different postgraduate speech pathology courses in the next little while. And I guess something to keep in mind here is that if a course is accredited by Speech Pathology Australia, that's Speech Pathology Australia saying that the outcomes of this course are sufficient and adequate to work as a speech pathologist. So in a way, the degree programs are kind of equivalent in terms of those clinical outcomes. However, individual courses do differ with regard to the way they get you to that spot, the way they get you to be a competent speech pathologist. So different courses might have different units of study. They might vary in terms of the organisation of clinical placements and the types of experiences that they offer, as well as fees and locations. Yeah, so I think it's really important that if you are applying for a speech pathology degree program, you do have a good look through the coursework, you have a good look at the clinical program and think, is this a good fit for me? Is it consistent with what I'm interested in? Is it consistent with my values? So what's distinctive about us? What's good about Macquarie's Master of Speech and Language Pathology? I think the first thing to note is that we do have a real area of strength in the application of linguistics and the application of the analysis of language. From 2022, we're going to be offering a really interesting unit of study that's specifically focused on multilingualism in speech pathology practice, which is a really fascinating area and will allow those of you who have language skills in languages other than English to kind of flex those muscles a little bit and think about what practice would look like in that language. We also have strengths in the area of studies of aphasia, stuttering, and bilingual language. Another really good characteristic of our course is the way that clinical placements are distributed. As I said before, we do get you out into placement really early and often. And I think we provide a really good breadth of experiences. Other courses tend to block their placement experiences together, so you do more of a longer period of coursework before you may head into placement. We also at this stage offer a wide variety of placements in many different speech pathology workplaces. So again, some other courses might, quite interestingly be thinking about doing simulation as part of their placement experiences. I think this is valuable and has a real sort of role in speech pathology education. However, at this stage, we're really confident in our ability to deliver clinical placements and real workplace experiences. And we've been really successful in doing that in these challenging times. We also have some really good relationships with really core sites of clinical education and speech pathology practice. So things like rehabilitation hospitals, Royal North Shore, for instance, Royal Rehab. And in addition to that, we have a really high quality on-campus clinic that provides a variety of different services. Okay, so if you receive an offer for a place in our course, there's a variety of checks that need to get rolling in order for you to take up your place and begin participating. So we've got police certificate, working with children, vaccination screening. They're really, really important. Once you get your offer, you'll have some specific information about how to do those things. So yes, it's important that you do get onto that promptly. So what does the work prospects look like for speech pathology graduates? Speech pathology is, like audiology, an acknowledged area of skill shortage, particularly in rural and remote areas. There is a need for speech pathologists there, and this demand is likely to increase as our society changes. And as we've seen in the first half of this year, things like telepractice really take off. I'd suggest having a good look at the Speech Pathology Australia website for more information. In terms of the experience of recent graduates, those wanting to particularly stay in metropolitan areas, in metropolitan Sydney, have often had first experiences in private practice. And we do have some coursework that's really oriented towards preparing you for working in private practice, for instance. However, people often do take up opportunities in the rural public sector, so particularly rural health jobs as a first job and a first speech pathology postgraduate experience, post-graduation experience. I should also note too that, by the time we get to graduation, so around April following completion, most people who want to work in a speech pathology job are working in a speech pathology job. So I think we do really well, and I think employers really expect high quality from Macquarie graduates. Okay, so that brings me to the end of my presentation. I'm now going to hand over to Medulla, who's going to speak about the Master of Clinical Audiology.
Sorry, Scott, could you? Oh, yeah. Okay. Wonderful. Thank you, Scott. So now over to audiology. And once again, so I'm sure all of you are here because you have some idea of what audiology is all about, but because I love what I do, so I'm going to share and give you just a little bit of, I guess, entree about what you will do once you choose this as your vocation. So audiology is all about the merging of science with arts, because you are actively engaged in determining whether there is a hearing loss, then what can we do to prevent it? How do we diagnose it? How do we manage it? And everything that's associated with those disorders. And just to give you an idea, for example, here's a sound. Would you believe? Now, that is one of the tones we would use when we're testing children, because believe me or not, your brain stem to your cortex area is very sensitive to these modulated signals. So we take this into account when we're testing, for example, children. Anybody who did not hear it, well, we do have a clinic where we can test your hearing, but I'm kidding. But more importantly, what audiology concentrates on is not just about hearing, but what we really like to research is, for example, here's another example. The reason I use that is because it is a life-saving I guess, requirement. If you hear that sort of sound, it is a branch falling, and you really want to be out of the way. And that's what your auditory system does for you. It warns you. So when we are looking at audiology as a field, while our main work may be about detecting hearing, but more and more we are kind of moving away from just about percept of a sound to all about how does our auditory system work with sound that is presented to us in various environments. We look at testing any ages and any stage. We look at balance function. We provide management. We work with devices. There is, of course, the ringing in the ear after a big night out, after a music concert, which has, I'm sure, been a while for most of us, but those days would be back. And then, of course, we are looking at hearing care in general and working with other professionals. So all of that is what an audiologist would do. And just to give you a big picture, worldwide, over 360 million people experience disabling hearing loss. So it is one of the most common sensory deficits. And that being said, with the aging population, this is one of the biggest concerns, and therefore audiology will always have, I guess, a role in general public and its health. Now, I just want you to watch this. It's a black screen right now, but I want you to hear one of our alumni and what they had to say.
I'm Pia, and I'm a clinical audiologist, and I work at the Shepherd Centre. Hearing loss is something that affects people of all ages around the world. I work as a pediatric cochlear implant audiologist. It is so rewarding to work with children and to see them make sense of sound for the first time. Being accepted into the Master of Clinical Audiology program at Macquarie University was a milestone for me. It brought my career of choice closer, and the combination of clinical placements, lectures by highly skilled academics, and easy access to research was very empowering and encouraging. It also enforced my interest in research and led me to complete my PhD in audiology at Macquarie University. The fact that the audiology program is based in the middle of the hearing hub in Sydney is a huge benefit to students. The environment of world-class researchers and academics, combined with a number of key leading organizations within our field, creates an inspiring and dynamic campus to study at.
Oops. So that was just to give you an idea of what our alumni experienced, and went on straight after doing her master's, decided to do a PhD, which of course they can, and you can at Macquarie University. But that's another story. Back to a Master of Clinical Audiology. We've got to finish that before we do PhD. So what is the study pathway? Well, for one, undergraduate degree, and any degree is acceptable because ours is a conversion degree. It is a vocation. You are choosing a vocation and we train you for that. Yes, there are some courses that do require a little bit of background knowledge, but that means you really need to be able to, I guess, do simple numeracy. If you have neuroscience, it does help you, but that doesn't mean that we don't support you if you need that help. And Macquarie University does have, I guess, those centers to help you get that a little bit of background to support you moving forward. So in general, I guess the program's admission it is flexible, but you do need an undergraduate degree, and you do need to have a good credit average, mostly because it is a demanding program. And actually, I should call it a course. It is a demanding course, and our students who are on this panel would tell you that it is not a simple feat. But hey, you are here because you're interested, and therefore that certainly accounts for a lot. Like speech pathology, you need to submit a 2-page personal statement, and the kind of questions we're asking are very similar to what Scott earlier said. We want to know, what do you understand by audiology? How is it practiced in Australia? Why do you want to enter the profession? What are the kind of personal experiences that you have had, your exposure to the field of audiology or related fields? Put that all in there, and for any reason you think you deserve to be in the course, but have not, for any reason, done very well in your undergraduate program, please share that. Make us aware of why we should choose you. And that's what we are looking for in that 2-page personal statement. And once you've completed the degree, you enter again, the students can tell you, they've been talking a little bit to the what are they called? Oh my God, hiring programs, the Hearing Australia and some of the other industry partners who employ our graduates. And basically, once you get that, they provide you with an internship, which is a paid internship, 6 months to a year. Following that, you are recognized as an independently practicing audiologist. In terms of the course structure, we start at the moment, we are planning everything to be online, but we have been online for a few years now. So most of the program, most of the units are presented online using the Ireland section of Macquarie University's education portal. But then it is substantiated by some consolidation lectures, which might be online or face-to-face. They are supported by hands-on tutorials, and of course there are clinical units, there are clinical orientation program, and there is clinical placements, which may be, again, either online or in the clinic, which is face-to-face. So that's what any one session would look like for you. This happens to be for the first session in the first year. Audiology Australia is our, I guess, body that provides us with the guidelines, and they have defined clinical placements as formal, intensive, relationship-based education training that is case-focused, that supports, directs, and guides students' clinical development. And that is what we believe in when we are looking at providing clinical education. And once again, like speech pathology, as Anat Scott said, you do not have to go and look out for your own clinical placements. Clinical education managers, and Chevelle is online with us. It's their role to find a variety of clinical settings and find the suitable ones for you for the 2 years. You need to have a minimum of 250 clinical experience hours, and this is defined by the professional body, Audiology Australia. And our job is to ensure that you achieve and complete, I guess that's your job as you're the student, to learn and practice so that you are able to show competencies on those core knowledge and skills that are again defined by Audiology Australia. And at this point, all of these clinical placements may be face-to-face and online, so they'll be both. And it's quite possible that you may be online while the client is not, or the other way around. So we're looking at all different models to try and get as many clinical placements as possible. At this point, we do have 1 week blocks throughout the 2 years. However, we are looking at a model where we can also place you for a couple of days per week throughout the session, and in a variety of settings. But either way, you, the students, will have to attend these placements each session, be it in clinic, online, and wherever available. These might even be during session breaks. And they may be in and around Sydney or in regional centres in New South Wales. The more important thing for you to know is that basically the cost of going to a regional centre would be the student's responsibility. We try and help you with any at least finding a budget and safe accommodation in terms of providing you with recommendations, but the cost is yours. There are a few scholarships that are available, and we make those available for you to apply to. I guess the bottom line is, yes, there are 6 programs of audiology, clinical audiology at master's level throughout Australia. So why should you choose Macquarie? Well, I think we've said it a few times, and I know Pia also spoke in her video that audiology sits within Australian Hearing Hub, and this is unique. It is unique in the world, really. It's unique because we have our industry partners housed in the same area as us, and they give us, our students opportunity to do research, provide us with resources that can make, I guess, learning a little more fun. So this is, we have a Center for Translational Hearing Research programs. It is an accredited program, of course, and it offers practical experience in diverse clinical placements. In other words, Australian Hearing Hub has been, I guess, a design to support that experience, to work with industry partners and learn the cutting edge aspects of what makes up audiology practice at this point. We do have teaching, I guess, custom-made teaching spaces, pracs spaces. There is a private hospital on campus, and of course our own Macquarie Speech and Hearing Clinic with excellent training facilities and a model for best practice. So, and global, I guess, headquarters of Cochlear is right across. And again, they have been, they have provided in over the years placements and job opportunities for our students. Like speech pathology, we think we will have 12 Commonwealth supported placements, and they'll either be merit-based and or rural or remote grants. But again, you don't really have to apply. Every application that comes in will be considered for these grants, scholarships. In addition, Hearing Australia is offering one scholarship to anybody who identifies with Aboriginal and or Torres Strait Island group. And if you make sure that you tick that in your application, and that would make you eligible for this grant. In terms of job prospects, employability, well, as I said earlier, with an aging population, advances in hearing device technology, audiology is a rapidly growing profession. And most of our students are employed before completing the program itself, but some who don't want to move to regional and remote areas where there are more job opportunities, it may take up to 6 months post completion. And another question we are asked often about the starting salary. I have no idea. I can't really tell you because it is dependent on where you work. It is dependent on the area of employment, the private versus private industry wages with bonus. They can be very competitive. So yeah. Important dates. Well, not very different from what Scott said. Applications are open, so get on with it. And they close on the 31st of October. We aim to send the first round of offers in mid-December, and then there'll be another at the end of December. And then, like I said, we will have our start about 22nd of February, which will be stated quite clearly in the offer letter when you receive that. There is my email, so if you have any questions that we don't get to answer or you think of later, please send your query away. Thank you for listening, and I'm going to stop sharing. Okay.
Hi everyone. So I've been given the hard job of being the Q&A moderator. You've definitely got a lot of good questions for us, which is nice to see. So I'll start from the top. A really common question was, what are your options if you do not get into the master's program? So I assume this is both for speech pathology and audiology. So we'll start with you, Scott, if that's all right.
It's actually quite a tricky question to answer because I think it varies a lot depending on different individual circumstances. And if you were worried about the prospect of not entering into the master's program, or if you don't receive an offer, then I really strongly encourage you to get directly in touch with me or Medulla to talk about what your options are and what you're trying to work towards. I think for many people, if your ultimate aim is to become a speech pathologist, and that's really, really what you want to do, then the path of least resistance might be to think about what are the other courses that I can apply for that also provide you with the professional speech pathology qualification. We have had people who have gone and done study elsewhere and come back to Macquarie. That's something that people choose to do sometimes. And some people decide to go and study in a completely different area and then, demonstrate that they can study at a higher level, and that provides them with some sound evidence that they're going to be a really good candidate for us. So yeah, complicated question, something you should get individual advice for. And it's not the end of the world either if you don't receive a first or second round offer. It is not uncommon, and we have had people, we have had many people come back to us and be successful on their second application.
Just jumping in, Scott, actually, just to add to that, I was one of those people. I didn't get in first time.
I didn't want to throw you in at Emma, but
I'm willing to put myself under the bus, but
wonderful.
yes, I didn't get in first round, and I came from the undergrad program. I think I contacted Scott from memory, asking maybe just some pointers as to why, and I think then it was based on a marks thing for me. So I did reapply the year after. I was lucky enough to get in the following year, but all I can say is don't just wait a year, or don't just think that because I didn't get in this time that I'll definitely get in next time. It doesn't work like that. For me, I chose to use that year from a volunteering perspective. I was in clinics, speech clinics. I was in volunteer stroke groups, and I used that year to just get as much experience under my belt as I could, which I would like to think was one of the reasons why I got in the following year. So try again if all else fails, but use the year.
Thanks, Emma. And Medulla, what would you say for audiology?
Everything
short
Scott
and quick.
said and Emma said. That pretty much
Easy.
sums it up. We've had students who have come back the second year, sometimes even third year. And yeah, Emma, what you said makes perfect sense. And we've seen that people have done other studies, taken a few years. But one thing you shouldn't consider, and I'm going to be quite brave here and say, don't try and do your undergrad studies again or do the same thing again. That does not help. It's not helping you, and it doesn't make a stronger statement. You're better off doing what Emma suggested. Get into the field of your interest. Get as much experience. You want to study, show that you can cope with a postgraduate level study, do something different, that you really, second best option for you to get your higher VAM or GPA, and then apply again.
Okay, next question. Thank you, Medulla. We'll throw this one to the girls, Gemma and Emma, fitting names, the team. So just wondering, what kind of practical experience do you get in the Masters? And just from a student's perspective, I think it'd be good for everyone to hear. And are you considered work ready at completion? Because we're almost finished, I'll throw it to you, Gemma.
Yeah, okay, I'll go first. So the prac experience we get we get put into a whole bunch of settings. So we might be in hearing aid rehab clinics, more diagnostic settings in children's hospitals and community health clinics. So there's quite a broad range in terms of where we can actually get experience in itself. And in terms of will we be considered work ready? Yes, I don't think they'd let us graduate if we weren't considered work ready. So that's definitely the aim of, everyone wants you to succeed. So they're not going to kind of let you kind of keep going on. They, by the end of it, you are considered work ready, and all the placements kind of help you along with that as well.
As from a speech perspective as well, all I can say is the practical experience and the opportunities you get in the master's program for speech is so good. I've been very lucky with my placements. I've been in 2 hospitals. I've been in a rehab facility. I'm currently at Royal North Shore, which is fantastic. So definitely the experiences are worthwhile. You do so much learning in such a short period of time, and yes, at the end of the degree you are hopefully considered at entry level, which is to enter into the profession. So you will definitely be ready to go by the end of it.
Great, thanks Emma and Gemma. Now another question that we've seen a lot of is to do with how many applicants apply and how many applicants are accepted. So I know it varies, but can we have a general ballpark number? We'll start with you, Scott.
Yeah, so usually we're looking at around 150 applications in total, but some of those will be not competitive applications, shall we say. People who, for whatever reason, don't fit don't fit our course. So I think year on year, we probably have a group of about 60 candidates who are really either at the mark or really close to the mark. And yeah, in a typical year, we're looking to take between 40 and 45 into our course.
So I'm going to step in and say audiology is a little, I guess, higher numbers. We get close to 200 applications. And again, yes, there's always some who are, you know, applying because they should, which is reasonable. Everybody's allowed to apply. That's okay. But we take in the top, we start with 70, but mostly then we settle in, shall we say, with 60 students. So, which is what works well for our placements, and yeah.
We had one more question following from that, I think for both speech path degree and audiology. Are there any dropouts in the course? And I can answer them myself. There are a few audiology dropouts because it's very intense. But yeah, Scott and Radula, I guess.
Yeah. As I said, we start with about, you know, anything up to 70, but by the time the census date comes along, we're down to 60. And most dropouts are in first semester because that, I mean, I'm saying it again, the program is intense. Did I say it? It's intense. So we do get some students who are, despite that, are a bit surprised, which is reasonable. Life happens. So we do get reasonable dropouts, but we have had students who have come back as well to the program. But yes, bottom line, yes, there are dropouts, but mostly in the semester one. If there are any dropouts subsequent, it's because something's happened, but they have the option to defer and come back.
We, being a little bit smaller, it's fairly uncommon for us, I'd say. Most years we have between 0 and 2. So people do tend to come and stay for us. And yeah, that's it.
Thank you for that. Hi, Chevelle. I might throw a question to you. So are there any opportunities for placements in a hospital setting for audiology placements?
Yes, we have a few different hospitals that we place students in for paediatric and diagnostic settings. So that's definitely something, we know that's an area of interest for students and somewhere that we want them to have clinical exposure to. So yes, students can definitely have hospital experience during the program.
Great, thank you very much. And what would make an application for the Masters of Clinical Audiology competitive to both Chevelle or Madula? Whoever wants to answer.
I think that's, I think Madula is probably best placed to answer that one.
I guess it's all the things we've said in terms of writing your personal statement. That's really, I mean, there's nothing much you can do with your GPA. It's already done. Well, actually not quite. There is semester 2, session 2. So work hard. Make sure your GPA is high, because that certainly allows you the best opportunity. But the personal statement does play a role, because we place a little bit of weightage even on that. We really do want to understand, why are you choosing? Because we don't really want to have dropouts, and mostly those dropouts happen because people, you know, they weren't sure, and so we try and avoid that. So personal statements are your best bet.
I just wanted to add to Madula. Yep. So I was, I think, on the cusp of the grade cutoff, and the personal statement is really the chance for you to kind of sell yourself. You're able to kind of explain of your, I did quite a lot of volunteer experience, which I think might have been looked a bit favored upon. So you're kind of able, to explain that, I guess, give any explanation as to why your academic mark might not be where, you know, the cutoff is and things. So yeah, don't just see the mark as a complete straight off, don't apply. Try and use that personal statement to your advantage for sure.
Thanks, Gemma. We've got a question to do with from Anonymous, if one has a slight lisp themselves, can they still work as a speech path? Followed by another question, if someone has hearing issues, example, tinnitus or a hearing loss, can they work in audiology? So I find that really interesting. Mridula, could we have you answer that first, please?
Yeah, we've had students who have been wearing hearing aids, a cochlear implant. Of course, best advocates for the field. You're the ones wearing the devices, you know what it does or doesn't do. It provides you with the opportunity to actually change the field as well, provide your input. So not a problem.
And Scott?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, easy. I thought so. I just wanted to clarify. Scott, I was wondering, we've had a few questions about prerequisites for, I assume it's mostly on Macquarie website, but if you want to run through that generally.
Yeah,
overview.
sure. Look, I'd really just suggest that people look up the Diploma of Speech and Communication and have a look at the content of that, and that will give you a good idea of the knowledge that's required. I'd also suggest too that if people are unsure about whether they meet the prerequisites, so they've studied at another institution, they've done a linguistic subject or a psychology subject that's maybe not quite the same title, but sort of looks similar, go and have a look on Macquarie's unit guide website, units.mq.edu.au, and you'll see the learning outcomes and assessment tasks in those units, and compare and contrast it with your prior study. And if it's looking pretty similar, then it's probably okay, but you have an opportunity to include that information with your application as well. So you can include unit guides as supporting documentation for your application. So when I'm looking over the applications, I'll be in a really good spot to understand your prior study.
Okay, thank you very much. Another question. So how many students are accepted, international students, in each course? This is quite a common question as well. Do we have a number on that?
Yeah,
No.
I mean, it varies from year to year. Again, it's the same issue as with domestic students. It's making sure they have the correct prerequisite knowledge for the Master of Speech and Language Pathology. And look, over my time in the course, we've tended to have between 0 and 5 international students in each cohort. Yeah, sorry, Mridula.
No, same thing. We don't really have a cutoff. We just know what our capacity is, and we work against that. We've actually had anything from, I guess, 0 to 5 is more common. We did have an outlier of 13 a year ago. I don't know why, but there you go.
Okay, thanks, Mridula. I've got a question for Gemma and Emma. Well, let's start with Gemma because it is an audiology question. So the audiology master's internship following the degree, is that something students arrange themselves or is it organised for them?
So that is something that it's essentially a job. So you're having to apply yourself, I guess, find them yourself. A lot of the, I guess some of the companies come to the unit and present on their graduate program. So yeah, companies will run these graduate programs to kind of foster that internship for you, which is ideal. But no, kind of, I guess after you graduate, getting that job is your internship for that first year. So yeah, hopefully that answers that.
And Emma, is it similar?
When you finish, it's very much applying on your own. We don't have like an internship as audiology do. It's just you are ready to go and you're on your own as far as finding a job. You get a lot of guidance towards the end of your degree as far as applying for jobs and interview questions and things. And you do also get emails when certain job alerts come up to kind of guide you into certain areas if you're interested in that. But it's very much do your research and off you go.
Thanks, Emma. I've got a question for you as well. Are there any specific rural area examples for placements and or jobs for speech pathology? Example, Northern Tablelands or Walgett?
I know that, yeah, Scott, you can probably help as well, but I know just from my cohort, we've had rural placements in Wagga. There's Cowra, I think, coming up as well. Am I missing one, Scott?
Lithgow, Dubbo, Orange, mostly rural New South Wales for us.
Yes, correct. It's not a requirement, but it is a unreal opportunity if you do get the opportunity to do it. So look into it and ask questions about it, definitely.
Thank you very much. We've got a lot of extra questions. So we'll be wrapping up shortly, and I'll hand over to Mridula to close the presentation. And I'm sure we'll get those questions answered to you later. Thanks, Mridula.
Thank you. So there are a lot of questions. But before we do, can I just have one thing? Scott, somebody's asked if you get a conditional offer, what should your next steps be? As you said, will you contact us? Would that be right?
A conditional offer will usually be put out there when someone is still completing their undergraduate degree program, or there's another kind of requirement for entry, such as provision of IELTS, for instance, for an international student. If you have a conditional offer, that means you have a real offer until you decline. So really you just need to provide the information that we're looking for, or the requirement that we're looking for, whatever it might be. I did notice there was a few questions in there about interviews and previous work experience. Neither course has an interview associated with entry. It's just the personal statement and the WAM. And on top of that, in terms of volunteering experience, things like that, again, that's not something that we require. It can obviously be really, really helpful for you and provide, texture for your application, but it's not something that's required, and that's not weighted in any way as part of the application process versus WAM or anything like that. So yes, I just want to put that out there quickly.
And that would be the same. And there's one more question I think it's worth answering. If there's the anonymous attendee is asking if there is no need to come into the campus during clinical placements, which is for audiology, what about interstate students' a request to take their placements in their home state? I'm going to try and answer the first part, and then Chevelle, I'm sure you will have a few things to say about that. So first of all, no, we didn't say you don't have to come in. We said that the chunk of I guess for each topic within each unit is online, but it is supported by consolidation lectures. And not just that, there are hands-on component. And those hands-on component have to be in the university because there is stuff that you have to learn, show, do, etc. So Gemma, would you agree with that? Want to say something to that effect? And then Chevelle, over to you.
Yeah, so I guess for each unit you have about 2 to 3 hours worth of consolidation classes each that you need to attend to. And then, yeah, like Mridula said, you've got your prac sessions, which is using equipment. So you just don't have access to that, not being on campus. Yeah, there is quite a lot of time that you need to be on campus. So yeah, I don't think the masters could be completed living interstate.
Yeah, so I might contribute here as well that myself and my colleague, we convene the clinical units in the degree, and they are very hands-on and very interactive, and audiology is a equipment-heavy profession. So as Gemma said, there are things that we cannot replace by doing it remotely. So you will need to come in and work with your peers on campus. Yep.
One more question. Scott, you said there are some countries you could do placements in. Did you mention those in your slides, or?
No, I didn't, and I've put a text response into that. So essentially there I was referring to people who are international students or hold a passport for a country other than Australia who have a right to be in that country. So often we're seeing international students going home to their home country and having a placement there.
Okay, the questions are pouring in, but I think we've gone past the 7 p.m., right? Or am I? Sorry. I would say thank you so much, all of you, for attending. And please don't think we're going to dismiss these questions. We will try and get those addressed. And you might find if there's anything specific, you can ask Scott or myself, and we'll try and address those as they come in. But hopefully what we've spoken about today has given you some food for thought and help you move and apply for either or both programs, but don't do that. Apply for what you really want to do. And thank you, Emma and Gemma and Cara and Chevelle for joining in from both Scott and myself. And thank you to the team for helping us. Good night, all. Take care.